You know, there were a lot of movies this past year where a lot of people felt quite comfortable being completely naked for a long time on camera. More so than like most other years. Welcome back to the channel, guys. Today our movie in the middle is Poor Things. Poor Things is the newest Yorgos Lanthimos movie following newly created experiment Bella Baxter as she comes to life and experiences the world and all its wonders and horrors for the first time. It stars Emma Stone, Mark Ruffalo, Ramy, Youssef, Jerrod, Carmichael, Margaret Qualley, and Willem Dafoe. Happy New Year's, guys. I hope that you've had a really great start to the new year, that things have been going well, that you're kind of resetting your mindset. I'm in the process of taking down all of my Christmas stuff and getting ready for all the 2024 movies, and of course, as usual in January, catching up on some 2023 movies I didn't get to talk about yet. Now, Yorgos Lanthimos, I've never been a huge fan of his stuff. I think it's been okay, but for me, the reason isn't because his movies are weird, but because I find them weird in a boring way. Like, they're kind of slow burn, but I also haven't seen Killing of a Sacred Deer yet. I know, don't shoot me. So maybe that'll change my mind. But this one I was very excited for because it seemed like it was going to be way wackier, way more fun, way more in your face. So I was very excited for that. Starting off with the highs, probably the one that is the most obvious, the cinematography in this movie is wild. There are so many very weird techniques and types of shots, so many and so sporadic that at first it almost seemed like it was being weird just to be weird, just for weirdness sake, which in this movie would actually be very valid. But there were a few of them that were so consistently used that I started to notice like this pattern, and it gave this kind of overall feeling or sense of observation or being observed. Everything from peephole shots to fisheye lenses to extreme panoramic views. It was really weird to look at, and I really liked it. It's that type of cinematography and even editing where it's supposed to jump out at you. It's not supposed to blend in. It's supposed to be like, here, look at this. Along with that, the production design, from everything from the architecture to the color choices to the costumes, everything in this was insanely weird. And I think it was hyper stylized to give this sort of sense of how Bella is seeing the world for the first time and all its beauty and all its chaos and its overwhelming nature. And actually, before I even saw the movie, just seeing the trailer, a lot of the architecture, the design of the cities, it reminded me of the Nutcracker in the Four Realms, how a lot of the buildings were designed in that. I've never even seen it, but just from what I had seen in both of these trailers, they kind of reminded me of each other. But what I really like is that the design, the color palette, everything seemed to sort of shift and change and reflect how Bella's mood and maturity is at any given moment, depending on what she's been learning about the world, depending on how she feels. It kind of seems to match that. So it seems weird on the surface, but oddly enough, it's kind of straightforward, both in how it's portrayed and the story itself. Although there is one recurring bit with Willem Dafoe that I just don't know what to make of. And lastly, in terms of the technical side of everything, the music was just very interesting. It was very quirky and fun and purposefully kind of off tune for a lot of it. I really, really liked it. It kind of seemed to reflect again how Bella is in the movie. And speaking of Bella, Emma Stone was absolutely amazing in this movie. The way that she talks, the way that she moves and looks at everything, and she is so hilarious because in part of it, she's definitely oblivious. But then in other parts of it, as she's learning more, it's not so much that she's oblivious, but she knows exactly what she wants to do. And she was so good. Just the dialogue in this movie is so funny at points. One thing I really liked about this was there is this YouTube video that I saw in college called Born Sexy Yesterday. I'll link it here because it's a really, really great video. And it's this concept that basically talks about that trope where a woman comes from some other very rare culture or from the Amazon or the jungle somewhere, or they're, a robot that's just been created, or they came from outer space. And basically the man that they run into just by existing is like the best thing that they've ever seen because they don't know any different. So this regular, ordinary guy just happens to be like their savior. What I like about this movie, something that I think Wonder Woman did pretty well, not as much as in this one, but what it kind of started was to subvert that idea of Born Sexy Yesterday, where yes, Bella was just created, and she obviously knows almost nothing of the world, and seeing it for the first time. There are a couple of times, and it's kind of a running theme, where she doesn't have control sometimes in her life, but for a lot of it, she makes all these choices for herself. She does what she wants to do, and it's not based off of what the man wants to do. Sometimes it happens to coincide, but a lot of times, all these guys are just like falling around her and having complete panic attacks around her, and she's just kind of walking through, and she's like, wow, that's cool. That's interesting. It kind of reminded me, like in Wednesday, how she has almost no motivation romantically, and she doesn't care almost at all about romantic stuff until almost the end of the series, and yet all these people, all these guys are just like fawning over her and fighting each other over her, and meanwhile she's just walking through and just like doesn't care at all. It's the same in this, where even though, again, there is this theme of her being trapped in some ways, the movie is about her breaking free of that and getting her own autonomy over her mind and body. The other big one I want to mention is Mark Ruffalo. I didn't know that he could be so skeevy, and he was so good in this, and I was very much here for all the overly dramatic motions and lines. Oh. That was probably what I was most excited for going into the movie, to be honest with you. But all the characters in general are just very intriguing, very quirky and weird, but also have a lot of depth and a lot of interesting backstories or things that they're trying to bring to the movie. Specifically, Jerrod Carmichael's character or Kathryn Hunter's character, both of them were very, very interesting in terms of Bella's journey and what they were teaching her. And the story itself was really, really cool because, again, it's very straightforward. It's just this journey of her going out in the world after being trapped for years and knowing almost nothing but just experiencing things. And it's this kind of story that we see a lot, kind of like The Giver, where you as the audience get to re-experience things that we're already accustomed to, very basic things like music and art and love and death and just life itself, on this blank canvas that is a main character who has no idea what any of these things are or is just beginning to learn about them. And you kind of get to experience them again. You're like, wow, yeah, those things are cool. Let's just sit in this moment learning about this or this or this. And whereas I went into this thinking, oh, it's gonna be like a sci-fi, a fantasy, something really weird, it ends up being mostly like a coming-of-age movie and a little bit of a rom-com as well, but mostly a coming-of-age when you really get down to it. And I really liked that. I didn't expect that, and it was pretty cool. My only middle is that this movie is focusing on and revolving around Bella's introduction to a lot of things in life, very primal things. This is a very charged movie, way more so than I would have expected, and I didn't have a problem with it because a lot of it has to do with the story and the tone and her journey and where she's maturing. However, I didn't know it was going to be such a big part of it that we weren't going to get to focus on other things more. I kind of wish that, even though I get that we needed all of that, those types of scenes, I just wish we had gotten to focus on other things as well with Bella. You know, it's like there's a couple scenes like very quickly where she gets into music or art or something like that, and I would have liked to have seen other of those things as well, because it seemed like they focused very much just on the sexual nature of the movie and her life and discovery, and I wanted to see other things as well. But again, I understand why they did it. My only low is that there is like about a 10-minute subplot that is added on to the end very quickly. It feels like the movie's wrapping up and then this thing happens and it's like a whole other subplot bit that's happening, and I'm like, where did this come from? And it is a very good angle to address with the story, because it's something that it's like, okay, that was bound to happen sooner or later. It's good that we're addressing it. I wish that they had been able to put it in before that. One of my friends that I was talking to after made a really good point that, it feels like the story itself is kind of stumbling along, going from thing to thing and back and forth, kind of like Bella does, both in her life choices, but also literally how she walks. So I think that it is a really good point that the movie feeling like it's going to end and then going back to something else and then going back again feels like it matches very well. Still, though, just story-wise, for me, it still felt kind of tacked on. And even if that's not the problem, for me, one of the bigger problems is that because it's tacked on, or it feels tacked on, it feels like they have to very quickly, like, rush the characters and their motivations in order to be like, okay, we addressed it, and now let's get back to the end. It was a very interesting part of the movie, so I kind of wish that they had been able to take their time with it just a little bit more. So overall, I was so excited for this movie, and it did not disappoint. Poor Things is very, very fun, albeit it does get a little bit slow, kind of in the middle, but again, that's once you've kind of gotten past the, wow, we're into the world, and now it's like, wow, the world's complicated. So it's very fun. The script, the dialogue is so great. There's so many lines in here that I love so much. It's really funny at times. It's really heartfelt at times. It's so weird, but I think it's weird in a way that a lot of mainstream audiences can like it. They can be like, this didn't really confuse me that much. It was just kind of like, wow, that was odd, but okay, like I get it. I'm going to give Poor Things a 3.5 out of 4. Well, guys, let me know what you thought of Poor Things in the comments below and what you think of all the other Yorgos Lanthimos movies, where this one ranks above them or below them. And get ready for the rest of January, because I got some rankings coming. I've got my top 10 of 2023, got my top 10 most anticipated of 2024, and one other ranking that I'm very excited to do that I've never done before. And as always, keep your hopes high, your stress low, and movies right in the middle. I'll see you guys later.